All right. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming and joining us on this webinar, How to Turn Holiday Customer Feedback, Naughty or Nice, into Next Year's Marketing ROI. My name is Seamus Riley. I will be the narration over this kind of video, but I'm going to hand it off to Tara and the rest of our guests and let the webinar begin.
Awesome. Thanks, Seamus. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining. My name is Tara Lordson, and I'm a Chief Analytics Architect at Wavicle. I want to wish everyone to start off a happy holiday season. I cannot believe it's already November. 2021 has flown by. One reminder before we get started, the recording will be available on demand afterwards, and all attendees will be getting a free pie from Goldbelly. So if you want cherry pie, if you want a vegan pie, whatever you want, you can pick out your pie and we'll be contacting you afterwards. So thanks again. To introduce a little bit about me, I started my career off in engineering and architecture, and now I'm a Chief Analytics Architect at Wavicle, so I help customers with their problems. And with me today, I'm super excited Ganesh and Nate are able to join. So Ganesh, will you introduce yourself?
Absolutely, and the pie sounds fantastic. Really excited. Maybe we'll get a little slice of that later as well. Yeah, hi everyone. Ganesh Subramanian, Director of Product Marketing at Snowflake. I've worked in the SaaS industry for a number of years now. Most recently at Snowflake, I head up a number of our go-to-market opportunities, especially around customer experience and marketing. As well as a number of different industries that where this is really pertinent, mostly consumer-facing verticals. So I'm really excited to join today and talk a little bit more about how important breaking down data silos, how important that strategy is towards delivering on that experience mission, especially when it comes to incorporating feedback. So I'll hand things over to Nate to introduce himself here.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Nate Weaver. I am also Director of Product Marketing in my current role, but I've been in analytics my whole career, going on 18 or 19 years now. I've been the analyst who was often in charge of delivering dashboards and reports to the marketing department. I've been a sales engineer, solutions architect, much like Tara. And then now I sit in an interesting role in between, our product team and our customers. But I'm hoping today to share a little bit of information about how ThoughtSpot is useful for all of our marketing customers.
Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Ganesh. So before we get started, a little bit about Wavicle. For those of you who are not familiar with Wavicle, we're a data and analytics consulting firm with really our focus is making smart people even smarter. So we let the experts across the business, the stakeholders really drive the value for each of our businesses, and we want to come in and solve their problems. And just right now, our focus is everything around customer data in the madness of just this holiday shopping season. So as system integrators, we like to work together with some of the most innovative and exciting technology partners. So Snowflake and ThoughtSpot are right there with us. So we're super excited to partner with both of you. So we're right around the holiday season. I will say I did not partake in the Black Friday shopping. I do not like the madness of that, but I do enjoy shopping. I love spoiling my family and my friends and like getting little trinkets and things like that. So kind of a couple cool statistics that we have is that over half of customers use both online shopping and brick and mortar. So for me, I like the online. It's a little bit easier, a little bit less of a frenzy. And also about 20% of our customers' annual income happens during the holiday season. And then e-commerce was responsible for over 25% of holiday revenue, which makes sense. I'm one of those people as well. And then 73% increase in data collection happens during this holiday season. So over the course of the year, you're collecting feedback, kind of your customer experience, but it really increases towards the end of the year. So what does this mean? Kind of the problems that we see with our customers is that over 53% of businesses don't have time to gather the customer feedback before their deliverables go live. So customer feedback is coming in and they're making decisions without really using the sentiment from that customer feedback. And then marketers don't often rely on structured feedback from traditional surveys. So think of like on a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, kind of that kind of feedback, but that doesn't really tell the full customer experience, the full story. And so for customer data specifically, 90% comes in as unstructured forms of data. So if a chat box pops up when you're shopping online, or kind of surveys or emails, social media is a ton of that unstructured data. But then what we see is that this raw data doesn't provide the insights or accurate sentiment that marketers actually need to react and build their 2022 plan and beyond. So this means that decisions about products or services or overall experience are made without the full understanding of customer feedback as well. So what do customers kind of think about all of this? 60% of customers will abandon a brand if they have bad experiences. I say I am one of those. It's kind of this like cancel culture. If something goes wrong, you're like, I'll find another brand. 73% of customers point to experience as an important factor of their purchasing decision. So what that means is if you have a really great price or a really good quality product, if your customer experience is lacking, customers will go elsewhere. And then finally, 70% of customers say they judge their customer experience based on speed. Right now, I feel like time is one of the most important aspects to our lives. We can get money, we can get more money, we can get more things, but we can't get time back. So if you can save me time, I'll purchase your product right away. And so kind of taking in some of these statistics, businesses are reacting to these customers. The top priorities that we see for businesses over the next 5 years are really focusing on the importance of customer experience. So pricing is important, kind of seeing product improvement, services improvement are also important, but customer experience is the top priority that we see for businesses over the next 5 years. So how can businesses improve their customer data strategies to act on feedback? One, they need to break down silos and act very quickly on that. Two, they need to develop an end-to-end strategy that has valid data, accurate data, and is super reliable and also is fast. And then they need to bring marketing and IT closer together. We see this with lots of different business areas. It's not just marketing, but specifically with customer experience, the marketers need to be working really closely with your data and analytics experts, as well as your IT experts. And then this is my favorite plug, partner with us. That's why we're here today. So ThoughtSpot, Snowflake, Wavicle, we work together to create a solution for that solves a lot of these problems. Okay, enough of me talking. I've used this term like data silos, structured data, unstructured data a couple times. Those are super intimidating for marketing teams. And so I want to toss it up to Ganesh. Can you chime in from Snowflake's perspective on how you can kind of address the difficulties of siloed customer data and what it means for marketers building that super strong customer experience?
Yeah, absolutely, Tara. And I think some of the trends you touched upon are spot on, right? Like consumers are moving towards digital channels. That is becoming a greater part of their overall experience. And one bad experience can just lead to customer churn. And so what we're seeing, and I think this is reflected probably in our audience today, is the need to figure out what does that digital experience really look like. And in order to do so, what I wanted to do is just share a little bit around why this is so tough for people. Because if it was easy, it would probably already be solved, and we wouldn't be talking here today about putting together an elegant solution for our joint customers. And why is this tough? It really boils back down to this explosion of data. Tara, you mentioned structured, semi-structured, unstructured data. I want to make this a little bit more tangible. So structured data, most commonly think about your orders, your transactions, your prices. Semi-structured data, you can think about when a customer engages on a digital channel, maybe through your website. The way that they're engaging your platform comes in a semi-structured data format. And then of course there's unstructured data, things like raw text, video, images. Historically, this has been incredibly tough to manage. All of this data is being created at exponential rates. And because of these different formats and file types, organizations on the IT side have had to create all this complexity to manage that. So data silo after data silo to store these different types of data in a way. And then to make it actionable for people, they then need to create more data silos, more copying and moving of data and transforming it in order to make it accessible to different functions across the organization. And that's really been the root cause problem where we are today. And this image on the left-hand side for folks in the marketing world will probably resonate and maybe cause some visceral gut reactions here. This is actually an image of the marketing tech landscape. And so, we mentioned earlier shifting towards digital channels. What's that resulted in is the creation of a number of different solutions to engage customers across every touch point across their complex journeys. And you can see back in 2011, there were about 150 of these tools. Now there's well over 8,000 of these tools. And so each different tool is engaging your customer. It's also creating data about your customer. And that data is being stored in a silo. Now, how do you create a seamless, personalized experience? You need to stitch all of that together in one place. So on the next slide here, this is often the challenge, right? Because you have all these different data sources about your customer, and maybe you could do some kind of micro optimization, right? So maybe in a silo that someone just engaged this advertisement of yours, or maybe they responded to an SMS, and the next best action is obvious in that tiny little part of their journey. But then what happens when that journey kind of expands across channels? So a classic example is someone adds a pair of shoes to their shopping cart. Maybe they even check out of their online shopping cart. But then on Facebook or Instagram or any website, they're getting retargeted with those same pair of shoes. Your customer's already made that transaction. And so that marketing and advertising spend is complete waste, first of all. And second of all, your customer is probably a little frustrated seeing you track them across the internet, trying to sell them the same pair of shoes they already bought. This is a classic example of the transactions data being stored in one silo, not meshing with that customer 360 to engage them about what's pertinent to them. So on the next slide here, obviously the vision is to then bring all of that in one place. So you're giving your customers the right touch point at the right time. So, your advertising platform and your SMS or email or your digital experience knows what's happening from your transactions or your web clicks or your raw customer feedback. And that's where Snowflake and ThoughtSpot really come into play from a tech perspective. On the next slide here, you can get a sense of what this technology really is. At the end of the day, what Snowflake does is we are a single source of truth. We're a single platform that is we're able to capture that structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data, which is now in public preview. And we're actually able to create a single identity for your customers using the 6 workloads you see here on the screen, so that marketing organizations and customer experience teams, product teams can all leverage that data to drive outcomes. We work with great partners like ThoughtSpot, who are able to then tap directly into that data rather than creating another data silo, but rather actually tap into where that data is live and fresh, and then make that actionable for all the different functions you see on the right-hand side. In addition, beyond the insights is then the actions you take with that data. And a number of different customer data platforms or marketing clouds, and a bigger trend we're seeing now in the marketplace is the use of reverse ETL. Essentially, what that means is piping data out to all the different engagement channels, so you're leveraging the most fresh real-time data about your customers to give them the right experience at the right time. So that's a quick view of how we kind of think the problem, how it originated, why we're here, and hopefully we'll give our audience maybe a few steps how to go forward to kind of break down some of these data silos.
Nice, thanks, Ganesh. I will say I recently bought a backpack, and I literally was marketed for that backpack, and then I already bought it. So that as far as that social media behind the marketing being behind the IT side of things, it's a perfect example. So Nate, before we dive in, can you explain kind of what ThoughtSpot has learned about customer data silos, and from your perspective, what you see there?
Yeah, what we're often finding is that, I'll just call it the marketing department, is completely segmented off from the rest of the business typically, right? So they have their own data sources, their own data sets. I know that inside ThoughtSpot alone, we use 8 or 9 different marketing tools. So trying to funnel all of that data into one silo was typically a pretty tough process. But now all of our data resides on Snowflake, and we're able to query that live. So it doesn't matter if it's, field marketing or technical marketing, inbound, outbound, everyone can go specifically to the information that they want and ask and answer their own questions as they're making decisions, basically in real time. We recommend a very similar process for our customers where Snowflake's performance is so good that we can handle the complexity side of data modeling so that any customer inside the marketing department can span retail sales through how a campaign is run, looking at those results, basically combining multiple, not only data sources, but what I'll call data models together. So if I get a little bit technical here, that means multiple fact tables, which are different data sources that can be queried against, basically again in real time. I'll try to touch on this just a little bit later as I jump into our product.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Nate. So let's dive a little bit deeper into unstructured data. So specifically when I mean that, I mean customer feedback data, social media data, emails, CSAT, chat logs, all of that. The first problem we see is just the sheer volume. 90% of customer data is unstructured. So before you want to do any analysis, just collecting it presents a problem in itself. And then that isn't the only problem. So once you collect it, organizations need some sort of solution that can break down text-based feedback. So understand an actual structure from it, analyze the sentiment behind it. In other words, what are customers talking about and how do they feel? So here's a simple sentence about an item of clothing. This could be about service, food, product, and other examples as well. But the shirt fit true to size, but it was a bit scratchy. This is super simple for us to understand, maybe for our brains, but let's go back to the start. So Ganesh, you spoke about the advantages of Snowflake for storing and sharing data, but it needs to be collected from somewhere. So the first step is Wavicle's voice of customer solution. So we have an accelerator that we've built that uses the power of natural language processing to break down that sentence into simple categorization. So as you can see, the customer is actually providing two separate areas of feedback. One is on the fit of the t-shirt and one's on the comfort of the t-shirt. So two different areas of feedback. And unfortunately, many solutions today, they can't analyze feedback in that way. So in return, they'd label this one sentence as mixed sentiment, which is useless. So with complete and accurate feedback, you now have insights. So walking through this animation here, you see you bring in unstructured data, you take the natural language processing, you break it down into sub-comments, then you extract the actual entities, the topic classification, and then finally you get sentiment from each. Is it good? Is it bad feedback? And then you can actually store this in Snowflake once you break down. All right. So customer insights, this is all great, but they're useless unless the right teams can access them fast and easy. So Nate, can you tell us kind of how ThoughtSpot can help with that? So what are the difficulties of using traditional dashboards for non-IT users? Where do you see ThoughtSpot adding value?
Yeah, so if I touch back upon a few of the key points you mentioned earlier, 53% of businesses don't have time to gather that customer feedback, which means agility suffers, or decision-making is being influenced without an accurate picture of customer sentiment. That same process happens inside companies today as they're trying to work with the analytics. Their data is moving very fast. They typically have to go back to someone in a technical role like myself as an analyst to create another report, build another dashboard, and there's just a queue or a line that builds up. So that means I might be able to get to your report request in 3 to 5 days. And what really is happening is the business is moving on. Decisions have to be made. They can't wait on the data. So with ThoughtSpot being search and AI-based analytics, end users are able to ask a question in a search bar, get an immediate answer, basically live against their data stored in Snowflake. And what this does is it removes that bottleneck of the report request, because any non-technical end user can simply ask and answer their own question. So what we're seeing is Where ThoughtSpot was built for speed and scale, going back 8 or 9 years ago, we now leverage all of that on top of Snowflake's engine. So any data that can be funneled or reverse ETL'd or just ETL'd into Snowflake, then it can be utilized by any non-technical end user without having to have that middle layer or middle person in the middle, if you will.
So Nate, will you share some of the integrations that ThoughtSpot has with other technologies in the marketing and sales stack?
Yeah, so some data models are very straightforward. I'll start with Google Analytics and AdWords, right? There's a set structure. There's only a set number of tables that exist to store data behind the scenes. What that means is we can create what we call spot apps. These are pre-built integrations that come as a complete package of everything from knowing exactly how to connect to your Google AdWords instance. We know what tables you would want to pull the data from. We know what structure to build that into. Again, the data model, pre-built pin boards or live boards as we call them, since we are hitting that data live again against Snowflake. So Google AdWords is a very robust one to get up and running within a day and start utilizing. The biggest difference I think I get asked is, you have to have a specific license typically to log into a Google account, but many people within the marketing organization would want access to that data. So once the data is moved into Snowflake, again, anyone can have access to it if they have security rights to do so. The next one that I will touch upon is Adobe Analytics. A very similar story here. Adobe Analytics might have just a slightly more complex data model, but again, having pre-built answers, as we call them, which are like reports or pre-built live boards, will allow a broader audience to be able to ask and answer their own question. Much like you see in the screenshot there, it's just simply a Google-like search. It's a search bar for end users to navigate their Adobe Analytics data. Now, after that, there are other spot apps that are not marketing specific. So I'll just touch upon how the normal process would work without a spot app. So all of your marketing data can be easily put and stored into Snowflake's data cloud. Once the data is on Snowflake, we use live or direct query from ThoughtSpot into Snowflake. And you'll see this live when I jump in to show the product quickly. As I'm asking a question, a query gets sent out to Snowflake, executed, and then returned back sub-second. It's extremely fast. And I think the part I keep trying to reiterate with it being live query is you're not waiting on day-old data, like a traditional older IT-based batch process where things update overnight. We've hit a point where Snowflake can, again, just be, the data can be streamed into Snowflake, and then I can ask a question against that live. So I think I do need to touch upon just a little bit of how ThoughtSpot works, because it is very unique in the analytics market, where other tools that I have used or deployed in my past, even as a director of analytics, required a whole team to be built to not only maintain data, so like a DBA, a team of analysts to create, again, reports and dashboards. And ThoughtSpot handles things, quite differently. So we do it through search. Anyone knows how to search, like looking for restaurants locally, jumping on Amazon to buy a product. We also have a data model basically that allows you to right click and drill anywhere. This is just a core product capability. So in what I'll call the old school world of dashboard building, an analyst would have had to create a hierarchy, a logical drill path that an end user can go down. That doesn't exist in ThoughtSpot. You can simply right click and drill anywhere you want to at any time without any additional complexities added into that data model. Earlier, you probably
like a million hierarchies. Exactly what you're talking about. I've done that a million times.
And as an analyst, that's incredibly frustrating because I can't predict where an end user
Yep.
is going to right click and drill down. I can't estimate all of their questions ahead of time and pre-build everything, right? Hence the backlog or the bottleneck that I mentioned earlier. It almost feels like a broken process in today's age. So again, ThoughtSpot enables us to get around that. Earlier, I briefly mentioned ThoughtSpot is search and AI-based analytics. So with that comes AI-driven machine learning that allows it to auto-analyze the data that's happening behind the scenes to uncover things like hidden trends, anomalies, outliers. They're generally those aha moments that you wouldn't typically find unless you just stumbled upon it. Or in my case, as a director of analytics, I would have my analysts really just digging into the data all the time, trying to find something that's interesting, but that means throwing manpower at it, right? Well, ThoughtSpot automates that process. And of course, it is mobile, and you can do all of this on your phone as well. So with that said, I think it's probably easier just to show it, and then we can talk a little bit about how we're working with marketing data, and then we can jump right back over to answering a few more questions. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you will you confirm that you see my mouse moving around? Am I on the correct screen?
Yep.
Okay. So here I am on the ThoughtSpot homepage. I'll go ahead and just full screen kind of quickly here. And what you're seeing is some of the key metrics that I am following, things that I care about, in marketing. This data set happens to be about campaign analysis and tracking clicks on the website and other things that help lead us to that customer sentiment after they actually buy. I do have a collection of my live boards that I can easily go to. You can see what I've favorited, but I'm just going to start by jumping into the search bar, and I'm just going to start to ask you questions. I want to see things like impressions and clicks and conversions, and what you're actually seeing as I'm typing is it is leading me down a path, but it's also remembering me as an end user and questions that I've asked in the past. As I put the next additional keystroke or word into the search bar, it's constantly refining that list because it knows the data model behind the scenes as well. So it's very logical in nature. So if I go ahead and hit go, then what just happened is I asked simple things that I wanted to see broken down daily. Here's my trend line. ThoughtSpot chose a best fit visualization to present that data to me. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, if I see something that might be interesting, I can again right click and drill down at any time, anywhere that I want to. What's interesting about this is, again, this simple query was actually translated into SQL that was sent over to Snowflake live and returned as fast as you saw, because again, all of our data is actually hosted on our own Snowflake instance. And so what this allows me to do as a non-technical end user, again, ask and answer my own questions. Now, I did that search kind of quickly, so let me go through and do another one. This time I'll look for click-through rate. Again, you can see it's auto-populating that. I see that broken down by campaign. It's going to help me with misspellings as I do that. I want to see that broken down by content. And you know what? I know we have a lot, so I am going to go ahead and do top 10. Now I could do top 5, could do top 12, bottom 8. Doesn't matter what that happens to be. Again, it builds a visualization for me, and then I can ask and answer my own question. Now, all the traditional rules still apply. I can share this, I can save it onto a pinboard, which I will go into next. A pinboard is simply, in our world, a collection of answers or visualizations. And we actually call them live boards because, again, all that data is live against the data stored right in Snowflake. So again, I can export, do whatever else I need to, or change the visualization if I see fit. it's all quite easy to navigate. One of the things that I wanted to touch upon is what a live board looks like. So if I'm pinning that different information to a live board, I'll just go ahead and go to one. A live board is a place that I can organize data, much like you would a dashboard, to share with other end users. And again, we've transitioned what we call these into live boards because as that just loaded, it pulled the latest data from Snowflake, including when I go through and find a visualization that I want to dig into a little bit deeper, we have a feature that's called Explore. And Explore is a way for an end user to continue asking the next question, even when content was pre-built, like it was in this live board. So as an example, this one happens to be conversions by campaign content. But what you're seeing off to the right is I can create additional filters just by clicking on that radial button. I could add my own filter. Let's say here it's recommending, well, maybe you want to break this down by gender or by campaign name. And then if anytime I want to, again, right click and drill down, that I can go as deep as I want to into my data, including going all the way down to the underlying transactions that made up this, this category or this campaign. Now, we are going to talk about this in just another minute. I don't want to take up too much more time, but the question that typically comes after this is, well, how did all of this get enabled? I can see how easy it is to ask a question and create a visualization or a report. I see how easily I can add that to a live board to have a collection of answers ready to go that I can then distribute to end users in my company. Some people like just having things pre-built for them, or you can show them how in a couple of seconds they can ask and answer their own question. We're able to do this again through the complexity, speed, and scale that I mentioned earlier. So when I said that ThoughtSpot has 8 or 9 different marketing tools that we use, all collecting their own data, we're storing all of that data on Snowflake, and then we're using ThoughtSpot to ask and answer questions against that data. It's important that we break down those silos we mentioned earlier so that we can join some field marketing with corporate marketing or technical marketing and ask questions across all of that. With that said, what you're seeing on here is a very complex data model with multiple data sources that are combined together through one commonality, whether it be a campaign or a particular customer or a product. And then we have organized that data saying, okay, we just connected to 12 different tables. Now that they are joined together, which is actually surprisingly easy here in ThoughtSpot, now we have a very long pick list, if you will, of things that people can search against. And our goal of a worksheet is to take all that data the way it's stored in a database, which can be extremely technical with names that are not very friendly for the column headers. And we can add those friendly labels using the language that the end user in marketing would want to search against. So those are the friendly column names. We can add a description for hover over. We can have multiple synonyms. So I can either type out campaign name or simply just campaign, and it will still get me to the root, the same answer. Lastly, and I know I'm going just a little bit long here, is a feature that we call ThoughtSpot Everywhere. If you ever want to embed this content into a portal, you will notice that this looks vastly different than everything else. This could be your own internal portal, or maybe it's external facing that you want to give your end users or customers access to if you ever wanted to do that. So that when I go into any content, again, you can tell that all of this is simply embedded into whatever web page or form factor that you would like to do so. So formerly called Embedded Analytics, now it is ThoughtSpot Everywhere. Okay, so that was enough of me speaking, Tara. I'm going to turn it right back over to you. So
yeah, awesome. Thanks for the demo, Nate. I love how customized it can be, all the way to how canned it can be. That's something that's super unique about ThoughtSpot. I love that. So one of the questions I kind of want to address, we talked about data silos, but a data strategy has all different aspects: the data, the technology behind it, the processes behind the technology, but then the people. So Ganesh, I was wondering, can you kind of address the people silos we see? So between business, between IT, between marketers and IT, what do we do about that? Kind of
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
And I think that was great what Nate showed as well. And I think when you see something as elegant as the solution Nate presented, people might wonder, oh, how do I get there, right? Especially if you're on the business side, if you're in marketing, and you're working day to day on driving pipeline or creating conversions or creating great moments for clients. You're not thinking about where is all my data stored. That's not really what your core expertise is. And I think for many years, until really today, where we now have this technology that enables the breaking down of data silos and the really great access to that data, historically, marketing would often just find a way to solve their problems on their own, right? They'd stand up their own way of their own source of truth. It wasn't a single source of truth, it was another source of truth. And then when they went to their budget committee reviews with finance, they talk about their impact based on their campaign spend. They'd have different outcomes from what finance is looking at, which would create a lot of thrash and a lot of frustration. And so what I think marketers now realize is that it's not just their problem on their own. And before, they had to go solve this on their own because there was no elegant solution to really solve this. What's kind of funny is that I think that on the IT side, they've been trying to solve the same problem for a long time too. And I think they've been trying to work with legacy technology, things like Hadoop clusters or on-premise servers to construct some workaround solution to make this work for the line of business. And now they're realizing, hey, there's this new way of doing things where we don't need to store all these different data sources in different silos. We don't need to rely on yesterday's data. We don't need to give the line of business, a 3-week turnaround on a new field or a new request. And I think there's this important moment that's happening, which is marketing and IT are realizing this is not either of their problems in a silo. It's actually both of their problems, and they can solve this together. And so this is really where I think we're seeing marketing really push the envelope, which is they know what they need from the data more than anyone else in the organization. And they can't just let these digital transformations happen in IT because IT doesn't really know exactly what marketing needs from these outcomes. And so, when you hear the word digital transformation, many people kind of get cold sweats or maybe their eyes roll over their heads or whatever. I think that's because they're often tackled in a silo and without including the line of business. And they say, listen, just sit on your hands, wait a couple of years, and you'll get what you need. A couple of years pass by, and they never actually consulted really deeply with the line of business. And this thing becomes this never-ending transformation and a sinkhole of cash. What we see as successful digital transformation is let's target the first couple use cases that are most relevant. What do we need to do, right? Do we need to better understand our campaign spend, improve our attribution? Do we need to drive a couple better personalized experiences through a couple channels? Let's just identify those outcomes from marketing and then work backwards into solving the tech infrastructure to go make that happen. And so I think that's really that tried and true pragmatic approach of thinking about use cases and building the data foundation that can continue to scale with you over time.
Yeah, what I've found is the digital transformation is going to happen regardless of who's leading it, if IT's leading it, if the business is leading it, and this fear of being left behind or risk of being left behind, I think is something definitely to address. Of if IT decides to work with finance and get them through their digital transformation, and then they decide to work with marketing, and then they decide to work with operations, really making sure you're partnering really well on that. It's an interesting journey to see customers go through. Nate, from your perspective, how can business roles, because your ThoughtSpot is really that business side of things, that search, that pin board, the live boards. How can business roles, what can they do better? How can they better understand how to work together with IT, their IT counterparts rather?
Yeah, if we go back, 10 years ago to when I think many of the more common analytics tools started, they would often sell a server to put under the desk of the analyst, right? So that really hits a pain point with me, as Ganesh was saying. That can create what's called shadow IT, right? The business will go and just buy their own solution. They will try their best to maintain it, but things are actually quite complex in the data world. There's different joins that are used to calculate the math of accurate numbers. Some data has to be modeled together accurately, and that's exactly what someone in a DBA role does extremely well. They know how data works, but they don't know what marketing needs, right? So the frustration then becomes someone in marketing might say, I just want a fast answer to a simple question. And I've heard that so many times in my career, but when you hear the question being asked, it's not simple. There's a lot of business rules that happen behind the scenes to make that accurate. So you're right, ThoughtSpot was built for that non-technical end user to ask and answer their own question. What we've done is create a solution where all the data is accessible, and of course it's secured and it's governed and it's accurate, all the things that IT would care about. But then we give the end user a new way through search to do true self-service. So more importantly, we're getting IT out of the report writing business, which I can vouch for, as an analyst or any of the analysts that has worked for me, hated. They wanted to be working on bigger initiatives within the company. They wanted to be sitting in meetings with marketing to understand how their brains work and what problems they're trying to solve, not thinking about pixels on a screen and what color a chart should be, and creating just another dashboard. So we're finally bridging the gap, bringing someone in a non-technical, let's call it marketing role, together with IT, where they both have kind of clear lines of delineation. But if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. But more importantly, we're giving someone in the data world, data engineer or data analyst, a way to provide self-service for the marketing department.
Yeah, I will say, in my experience, the most talented, most successful director of analytics or director of IT, whatever kind of data role they see, are most successful when they take a day and they walk in a business person's shoes. So whether it's a marketer's shoes, you name it, and they actually sit and understand, what does your day look like? What does your week look like? I love leaders that do that. And then also I'm picturing this work from home lifestyle, having a server running all the data underneath my desk here, and like each of us, yeah, right now we have it and it's just a search bar. It's just the data cloud for Snowflake with a search bar on top of it. It's so, we've come so far. It's very, very different now.
And Tara, just to add to that, I think, some of the best marketers, and if I think about the marketing of the future, are the ones who are the most data savvy. And that doesn't mean you need
you're
to,
the inverse. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't mean that every marketer needs to now, learn how to code in SQL. That's not what that means. What it means is you need to be aware of how this data actually comes together at a high level so that you can drive what you need to drive, right? It's hard to just have that conversation, I think, especially in this fragmented world today, right? We're sitting in our rooms. How do you tap someone on the shoulder and say, listen, help me solve this problem? So I think just having that awareness is really going to be the strength for marketers in the future too.
Mm-hmm. It's this handshake of the more data savvy a business person can be, and the more business savvy a data person can be, the business will be better for it. That idea of the word like unstructured data being a super intimidating word, I feel like if a marketing manager or marketing director knows what that means, it only makes their job better to understand how it all happens behind the scenes. Yeah, that's spot on. All right, so let's look at it. So we've kind of talked about this full end-to-end journey of the partnership in motion. So this animation walks through everything we've talked about today. So step one, you have some sort of survey, some sort of social media, email, customer feedback comes in, and it's completely unstructured. So to revisit that that example from beginning, the shirt fit true to size, but it was a bit scratchy. All right, we take it through Wavicle's voice of customer solution, which is that natural language processing. I love the animation walking through. So co-referencing, you're understanding each of the individual pieces of this. Then you break it down into sub-comments. So there's really 2 different pieces of feedback here. Then you do the entity extraction. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the product, the shirt itself. Then the topic classification, we're talking about the fit of the shirt, and we're talking about the comfort of the shirt. And then finally, we get sentiment. Is this good feedback? Is this bad feedback? Once that process is complete, we store it all into Snowflake, and it's officially structured data. So at that point, you can actually gain the sentiment from it, the analysis of it. And then I love the infinity. The infinity means you can ask the infinite number of questions you want with ThoughtSpot. It's endless. There's not some sort of predictive, I have exactly the descriptive dashboard from it. You can constantly explore your data with that live connection between Snowflake and ThoughtSpot. So here's really that partnership between Wavicle, Snowflake, and ThoughtSpot on top of all of it.
Yeah, and Tara,
so yeah, go ahead, Nate.
We often will call that there's no curiosity tax. You can come in, ask as many questions as you want. You're not bogging down anyone else. You don't have to save things. You can truly discover data on your own and then only save it if you need to.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. No curiosity tax, which in other BI tools and in other data warehouses or other data solutions, the tax is like months. It's like, oh, in 90 days, we can get you that information. So yeah, one other question I wanted to address with while we have the 3 of us is how can marketing and insights teams use this whole picture of customer feedback? So how do they use this kind of end-to-end journey to get quick responses? So Ganesh or Nate, do either one of you want to kind of give your perspective on that?
Sure, I'm happy to hop in, and then Nate, really curious to hear your thoughts as well. I think going back to, what is the value of this information? I think, again, you could probably figure out, from this feedback alone, what a given customer thinks of a given SKU or a product line in your organization. And I think there's some optimization there. But when you take a step back and then you say, we've ran the analysis across, thousands of customers by segment, and we've identified big trends. Now we can make merchandising decisions based on those trends, right? Like it actually turns out that our 10% most profitable customers care about this category, and they think that the material we're using isn't ideal. All of a sudden, the decisions you're making have such enormous impact. But how do you get to that point? You need the feedback. You need it across customers. You certainly need the sentiment analysis, but then you need to pair that with sales data, profit data, customer lifetime value data, which is often stored elsewhere. And so that's really where the secret sauce comes in, being able to take this insight, extrapolate it out, and then tie it to what matters, which is often revenue, costs, profits, and lifetime value, customer experience. So that's really what I think, how you turn this into real meaningful outcomes for marketing.
Yeah. Nate, do you want to chime in on your perspective as well?
Yeah, I feel like, unfortunately, because of my background, to keep going a little bit technical here, but I think, feeding off of Ganesh's story there is seeing is believing, right? Try it. One thing I did not show, in the product is a concept that we call zero to search, but as Ganesh was just saying, multiple sources are stored in different tables, potentially databases inside Snowflake. Well, we would simply connect to those tables, choose the fields that we want, and search. We don't have to add any complicated processes around that. But in today's world of, free trial, it's easy to spin up a instance of ThoughtSpot Cloud to try it against your own data stored in Snowflake, which you can actually also do a trial of getting your own data into Snowflake as well. So I think seeing is believing, trying it on your own, touching it, feeling it, knowing that it works for you, being surprised how easy it is a great way to, really get started.
Yeah, agreed. I think the questions you want to ask is this customer feedback one customer? Is this a picky customer about the scratchiness of that shirt? Or is this a full-blown trend that we're seeing and actually need to make some decisions off of it? So that would be my first question. All right, so we have the full end-to-end picture. We have the entire customer experience end-to-end. Now what? What Ganesh, Nate, and I want to ask all the attendees here today is, does your organization have similar problems? Do you see a need to get better insights, more valid, reliable, quicker feedback from your customers and make those decisions immediately with live queries against your data cloud? So it might be intimidating, but we can help. So our goal is to end this common question we see of, hey, can you pull this data for me? That is so legacy of, first of all, pulling data, then giving it to another person. We're ending that. We want the data to just be instantaneous. So we would like to work together. So if you are interested in reaching out to Ganesh, Nate, myself, if you want to see a demo, if you want a free trial of Snowflake or ThoughtSpot or both, the Embrace technology connecting to the two of them, we're here to help. We definitely would like to open that dialogue and have those conversations with all of you. And first of all, I want to thank Ganesh and Nate. Thank you both for being here today and sharing your perspectives. Don't forget, for all the attendees, you get a free pie. We'll be contacting you afterwards for whatever type of pie you'd like to celebrate with this holiday season. And then the recording will be made on demand. So if there's anyone you know who's also seeing these challenges and would like to find better, faster, more reliable solutions, please send them our way. Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks, Ganesh. Thanks, Nate.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Seamus and Heidi, are we all good?
We'll obviously cut this part, but
Yeah, I keep hitting stop